Okay, hi Ms. Hamilton, this is going to be my presentation on lytic and lysogenic cycles. Okay, here's on the first slide, we can see that the cycles of the lysogenic and the lytic. So on the left here, we have the lytic starting over here with the attachment phase. So in the attachment phase, the virus and the legs are going to clack on to the outside of the cell and get ready to insert its DNA or information into said cell. Then we move on to stage 2, which is right up here. So this is going to be the entry phase. So this is where the DNA or the information of the cell is going to get pushed, of the virus is going to get pushed into the cell. So the DNA or the information of the virus gets pushed into the cell, and this is how it gets infected. Next, we have step 3, which is the beautiful drawing you did for us, which is that now the DNA and the virus is completely integrated into the cell. We now move down to step 4. This is the replication phase. So this is going to be the phase where they make all the parts, the same way you would like Legos. They haven't been built yet, but you have all your parts to make several new viruses. Step 5 is the assembly phase, as you can see by my not so great drawings here of our viruses. This is the phase where they make it, and then they remake the virus. Finally, stage 6, they release. They all get let out of the cell and go to find a new cell to latch onto to repeat at step 1. Next, everything on the right side of the diagram is going to be the lysogenic cycle. So steps 1 and 2 are the same as the lytic cycle. Once we get through steps 1 and 2, we go into the integration phase, which, as you can see right here, the purple is going to be the information of the DNA of the virus, and the black is the DNA or the information that was already in that cell. So that the DNA of the virus is going to latch into the cell, so that when we get onto step 2 and that cell replicates, we have now multiple copies of that, because the DNA of the virus is going to replicate alongside the rest of the cell, which is then how we get into step 3, which is now the virus is a permanent part of the cell. And then finally, we get into the 4th stage, which now leads to you being infected, because you have hundreds of thousands of cells infected, because this process happens very, very fast. Now let's get into talking about the specifics of the lytic cycle. So all viruses use the lytic cycle to reproduce. Some use more than one, but all viruses do use the lytic cycle to reproduce. This is the standard method of reproducing amongst viruses. It reproduces in the cell and then gets released to find new cells to attach onto, as we talked about in the previous diagram. Some examples of this are SARS, the common cold, influenza, or rabies. Now let's talk about the specifics of the lysogenic cycle real quick. It's much worse for humans because the virus will remain domesticated until enough cells have been infected, so you will get the full force of the virus all at once. Only certain viruses are capable of using the lysogenic cycle though, thankfully. And in the lysogenic cycle, it meshes in with the information of the cell and then reproduces alongside the cell. Some examples of viruses that use the lysogenic cycle are HIV, herpes, hepatitis B, and chickenpox. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I appreciate your time.